I think you guys know I am a proud Avatar hater. I am not a fan of the first two films at all. I think they're both incredibly mediocre, but I really wanted Avatar Fire and Ash to be the one that won me over and made me a fan of this franchise, but unfortunately it did not happen. So here's my full spoiler-free thoughts on the best and worst parts of Avatar Fire and Ash. But let's start off with some positives. It's not all terrible. Of course, this movie does look incredible, just like the first two movies. All the visual effects, the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, a movie needs more than just good visuals to actually be a good film, in my opinion. I also did really enjoy the first like 20-30 minutes of this film. I think it reintroduces you to this world and these characters in a really fun way. You get to meet the Air Tribe, which I like to call the Airbender Navi in this world, and honestly I think everything around their characters, everything they do, and them being these kind of traders was really interesting. Hopefully we explore the Air Tribe more in future films. I also really enjoyed the first big action sequence of this movie where you see the new villain Varang and the Fire Tribe kind of come in and attack for the first time. I thought their introduction was really cool. It sets the tone early on. The score was kicking, and the musical score is great throughout this entire film. That never becomes a negative, but sadly, after these brief positives in the first 30 minutes, it kind of just becomes the same thing you've seen before in the first two Avatar films, like especially Way of Water. There are literally direct scenes that I feel like I already watched. They're like, oh, people liked it in that movie. Let's just redo them again in this film, and people will love it all over again. But like seriously, different arcs that characters are going on, the dynamic between certain characters are all things I feel like I've literally seen before. It felt like we were going through the same exact story, and I feel like James Cameron is just running out of ideas of what to do in the world of Pandora. Now I know Avatar Way of Water and Fire and Ash were originally supposed to be one movie, but that does not justify this being so similar now that they're cut into two different films. And since it's me, you know I gotta glaze Dune first, but I feel like that movie is the perfect example of part 1 and 2 are from the same book. It is one big story, but part 1 and 2 feel very, very different. And don't even get me started on the rant of the fact that Avatar is pretty much just a bad copy of Dune, because yes, you have this outsider coming to another planet that has one of the most valuable resources in the entire universe, but this outsider ends up learning how to join the native people here. Pretty much just like if What If Paul Atreides was a super nice guy. But even moving on from stuff that's a retread of Way of Water, like the brand new villain Varang, I really like this character. I think the design of her is super cool, and honestly just in the movie itself, her and the Fire Tribe should be way more interesting than they really are, but she's kind of underutilized in some scenes. There's never really any depth or exploration of like why the Fire Tribe actually acts the way they do in a way that was satisfying to me, at least. I feel like way more could have been done with this character to really liven this film up the ante a little bit from the previous two movies, but the movie's just kind of scared to take any big bold swing, like I said, and it just falls back into that same familiar thing, which I was not a fan of in the first two Avatar films even. This movie also for some reason decides that it's going to make the character Spider, pictured above me here, like one of the most important and focused on character, and I don't know if it's the writing of this character or the performance the guy's giving, but something about him just feels off. Like I cannot buy him as a real character in this movie. He just does not fit into this world, and I don't mean in the way like, oh yeah, he's just a human on this planet. Like I literally mean like he feels like he's acting in a completely separate movie than everybody else in the entire cast. Like he just does not fit in. But I honestly do think it's probably more on the writing itself than the actor, because honestly for most of the kids in this movie, a lot of the lines and stuff they have them saying, I'm just like, what on earth are you doing, James Cameron? I know you can write a better film than this. But I think my biggest problem simply comes down to how bloated these movies are. This one's another like 3-hour and 15-minute long movie, not even including the credits, and I have no problem with a film being longer, but you have to use that runtime in a smart way, and you have to respect your audience's time, because this movie oddly feels too long and short at the same time, because honestly there are so many different character threads and plot lines that I feel like are just kind of abandoned or not fully developed, despite the fact that this movie is over 3 hours long, which is insane. But at the same time, the core story being told here could easily be told in like a very clean 2 hours 15 or 20 minutes. Like I said, if your movie's going to be 3 hours, that's fine, but you have to earn that runtime. Like editing your film and cutting out certain things and making sure all the storylines fully converge into something satisfying is a skill in its own, just as important as directing. Now, as I mentioned, for context, I'm not big on the first two Avatar films. I think they're both like incredibly mediocre, like 6 out of 10s. This movie for me, I'm giving it like a 4 out of 10. So if you're way higher in the first two Avatar films and you're okay with just seeing more of the same, you will probably like this. I definitely recommend you go check it out. But if you're like me and you never really got fully bought into this franchise and you're waiting to be won over, I do not think this film is going to be the one to do it, because again, it's just all things you've really seen before. Let me know if you've seen the film, what you'd rate it in the comments below, and if you want to check out all my other movie reviews on the channel, make sure to click the playlist above my head right now, and thank you for watching.